Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. So if you've been paying attention to the news lately, then you've probably seen, the headlines about, certain protein powders being loaded with lead. Now, before you toss your tub in the trash, so we're going to look at, what the studies actually found and if it's something for you to worry about. And so there was a consumer report that tested 23 different protein powders and ready-to-drink shakes. And some of these were, this was under something called Prop 65, California's Prop 65. So they come up with a report that lists certain ingredients that could potentially, have negative effects. And so they have a safe level. And so under California's Prop 65, the safe level was 0.5 micrograms of lead per day. Now, they called out lots of different brands here. Some of them are well known. Optimum Nutrition was one of them. Huel Black Edition. So Huel, I believe it's a vegan protein powder. I've actually had this one. It's actually pretty good. And then Naked Nutrition was another one. There's a few others. There's quite a few of them that were in it. These are the ones out of kind of the bigger ones that they had that I knew of. The highest numbers were around 7.7 and 6.3 micrograms of lead per serving. And so it sounds high, but if you don't have a reference, then we don't really have anything to compare it to. But these are very tiny numbers. So the first thing to know is that exposure to lead is literally unavoidable. And so lead is in our water, it's in the air, it's in the soil, it's even in very small amounts, it's in vegetables, it's in fruits, it's in fish, it's in meat. And so even a typical meal, if you had meat, potatoes, green veggies, things like that, you can have it'll contain lead in it. And so one normal meal can actually exceed California's safe number by multiple times there. And so nothing really to be concerned about there. According to the European food safety data, adults consume just within the meals they're eating throughout the day between 25 and 170 micrograms of lead a day just through normal food intake. And so that's way more than just a simple protein shake is going to add. And so for perspective here, early signs of kidney issues start at around 44 micrograms a day, and blood pressure effects start to have some negative effects here at about 105 micrograms a day. And so every single shake that was tested was well below these levels here. And so the California Prop 65 level it's not a danger line, it's a warning line. And so it's intentionally set just very low. And so if you use that same standard, literally almost every single food in your pantry would require a warning label. And so the problem isn't that these companies, are just dumping lead into protein. It's that plants naturally absorb, small amounts of lead from the soil and from the water. And so there's nothing to be afraid of here. Obviously, with everything, we want to make sure, we're using things in moderation. We want to make sure, we're not just relying on certain things. But if you keep your, serving size sensible, one shake a day, 2 shakes a day is fine. Making sure, they're that the protein powder that you're using is third-party tested. So if it has the NSF certifies for sport or the USP verified, those are generally, we want to make sure, they're tested. And so the supplement industry it can be a little scary sometimes because there's not a lot of regulation. But generally, if you see the NSF or the USP, if you see that label on there, you're going to be okay there. And so, rotating between plant whey-based sources can be helpful. picking a vanilla or unflavored if you drink multiple shakes a day. Chocolate can add more of these metals, but again, it's very, very small amounts here. And then something to if your wife is pregnant, for women, for kids, pregnant women and kids, you should stick to. Make sure we're sticking to the certified brands. We just want to just to be on the safe side here. Again, probably nothing to be worried about, but when it comes to our kids, when it comes to our wives, we obviously want to make sure we're just playing it safe and no harm and being a little cautious when our wife is pregnant, and with our kids. And so the percentages and headlines, obviously, like they want to get clicks, they want to get people to read their articles, they want to get people to read their studies, but a lot of times they can be misleading here. And so when something in the study here, the article, it talks about how it's 1,200% higher than safe levels, and so obviously that sounds terrifying, but it's a very small microscopic number here. And so for most adults, this isn't a real health concern at all. It's fear-based reporting, and it lacks context. And so for my take on all this is a lot of it's a labeling story. It's not a health crisis. A lot of things, people are trying to get people to read their studies. Yes, it can have an effect on some things, but for the average person here, it's not gonna have a huge effect. You're already ingesting lead, you're already exposed to lead through everyday life. And so protein shakes are still one of the easiest tools to hit your daily protein goal when used in a smart way. And so focus just as I always talk about, focus on the big rocks, focus on whole foods, focus on lean proteins, getting majority of your food through your meals, using supplements as supplements, right? Getting consistent movement, good sleep, proper hydration, hitting your protein target. These are all, if you focus on these things, everything else is going to work itself out there. And so don't panic, just be informed. It's good to look into these things. I'm glad that, people do studies on these things and that they care, but as long as you're focusing on quality, you just kind of keep in perspective, you're going to be okay.
That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.